Support for this episode comes from Modern Football Technology. Modern Football Technology provides real-time opponent tendencies and self-scout while eliminating manual data entry into Huddle, DV Sport, and Exos. If you're tired of tools that are time-consuming to learn and perform inconsistently at best, then we recommend Modern Football for a fresh perspective. Schedule a demo today at teammofo.com to see a battle-tested tool that's proven to perform and deliver value. Mention Coach and Coordinator Podcast or use the coupon code CC10 to receive 10% off your first year. And listen to our recent episode featuring Folsom High School defensive coordinator Jordan Yurcich to learn more about how the 2023 California State Champion uses modern football to dominate their opponents.
One piece of advice that I did get a while ago was actually after I got let go one time was don't mess with happiness. Like, it's hard to find happiness. Like, how do you grow within being happy? And still, as coaches, we're all chasing a golden ring. What's the pinnacle? Can you get to the pinnacle within what your mind frame of happiness is?
We're back for another episode in our Teachable Moments series, and another great one here. And what I really like about this series with our guest host Steve Hauser and his guest who he has some relationships with is it gives a unique perspective, a unique look into a coaching journey and things that are learned along the way. And you know what Steve brings to the table, at least with most of these guests, is he was there for part of that journey and developed those relationships and then stayed in touch and really kept up with what was happening in that coach's life. So he has a deep understanding of what this particular coach is going through and really draws out some of the, as we say, teachable moments that we can all apply regardless of where we're at in our careers. So Steve, it's great to have you back again for another week and again another impactful episode here. This one with Bodie Reeder, offensive coordinator at UNI.
Yeah, Keith, it's really fun to go back and re-listen to these. Bodie's a guy who just tries to do things the right way. And it started when Bodie was taking over my job when I left for another position 3 days before fall camp. And he talks about that rawness and newness of coming into a thing from being a D3 coordinator to being the QC for offensive coordinator, that not only does Bodie have to learn how the building operates, but learn the offense and make sure it can be digestible for people in real time, because that first game, went from being the D3 coordinator, and I think his line was most parents and some girlfriends were in the crowd, and then you're going to play Jameis Winston in Jerry's world. So it's the journey of what you worry about as a quote-unquote young coach, and then you get into a little bit more grown-up life, and there's peaks and valleys, and how do you learn from each of them?
Yeah, definitely a lot of takeaways in this one, and be sure that you stay tuned for our Winning Edge takeaways and ideas for implementation after this interview with Steve Hauser and Bodie Reeder on Teachable Moments series presented by Teach Tapes. What you see on tape is a direct reflection of what you teach and how you teach. Video is important, but if you don't teach well, you're not going to like what you see on your video. First Down Playbook has been helping coaches teach better for 13 years. It allows you to present installs, playbooks, and practice cards in half the time with NFL quality. Coaching tools like video pairing, a player app, practice schedules, and wristband sheets have made First Down Playbook a program management system with everything in one place. If you're in a position of leadership with your football program, receive a free 1-week look at First Down Playbook. Call them at 512-814-6158 or visit them on their website or social media. Mention Coach and Coordinator Podcast or use the coupon code COACH24 to receive a $100 discount off the normal $700 First Down Playbook team membership price. Links and the phone number are in the show notes.
We got Bodie Reeder here. Bodie's my guy from the Stillwater days, the same room as figuring it out with Coach Dish. We'll have Carson Kramer on here, who's at Clemson later, but these are the guys who've seen it, lived it, and have come out the other side, as we've talked about. So, Bodie, thanks for jumping on, man.
No problem. Good to see you face.
Really, more than anything, Bodie, getting down to what this is just being a person. You know, you've seen the ups and downs of this thing from behind the scenes. You're in the front of the stage with the team. Like, I'd love to just hear your thoughts of riding the wave of this, of, UW Stout, right? Going to Eastern Washington, going to Auburn. Like, you've seen a bunch of different versions of college football. What has your brain told you from this whole COVID experience on?
I would say one is I've been extremely blessed in my career, and I wouldn't even say that the highest of highs was the biggest blessings, but it was the experiences overall. So think back at like some of my happiest times as a coach was when I was at UW Stout and being a young coordinator, 24, 25 years old, and teaching kinesiology and lining the fields for softball and doing play-by-play for men's basketball and working as an admissions counselor in the spring. And that was like a blast because I got a true experience for a full athletic department and meeting all the different young student athletes and interacting with them. That was as fun as it could be. And then you have different types of experiences like going to the Sugar Bowl, and we had a backup quarterback win 12 games and took us to the national championship game at Eastern Washington, and then been fired and had to kind of fight and scratch and claw on the way back. And it's the collection of experiences has been the blessing, because I think that if you are naive and you don't pick and choose from every spot that you go to and then try to apply it to your next job, I think you're missing out on some great resources just from, experiences. And two is you better never take yourself too seriously. And I don't want to use the words I, me, and mine too much, but if I'm doing my job and people get to know me, hopefully they know this isn't about me. And what do we do with our offense, or what do we do with our quarterbacks or our team or whatever it may be? Hopefully I'm the last name that comes to their mind, because it ain't about me. And it's easily can, in this profession, can pump your ego up, but it only takes one small prick of the balloon to bring you back down to earth. And I think that being humble and being personable and realizing that it's about those young guys wearing the helmets, it's not about yourself. And I think that's kind of what I've gathered.
Great starting point, man. And I'll keep the serious stuff here because we got into the serious stuff early, but just my background with you, like, I was lucky enough to be at your wedding and see your dad officiate that and know his background in football as a team chaplain at Illinois. Like, what was just your moment of like, this is something I have to be around long term? Was it early? Was it at Stout? Was it when you were playing at Eastern? Like, what was that time?
So my dad was my high school coach, and he meant a lot to me, but I didn't appreciate him until you're out of it, right? Until you're out of that kind of time in your life. Like when you're in it, it's like, yeah, dang, Dad, can't we just eat dinner and not talk about, freaking fourth down, like that type thing. But then I look back, I'm like, man, I had a dad that was involved in my life and my experiences, and that's pretty cool. But then just outside of my dad, like my basketball coach in high school, my baseball coach, Coach Bob Spoo and Roy Whitkey at Eastern Illinois, and the list goes on. Like, the positive male role models that I've had in my life have been coaches, for what, right, wrong, or indifferent. They just have been. I can't name a teacher in high school that I was like, man, I'm going to grow up and be like that guy. Not great teachers, but that just wasn't what I connected to. The guys that had the biggest impact on me were coaches, and that's what I gravitated to and I wanted to be. I was an average player at best, and I loved the game and I wanted to stay in it. So what were my options? And I knew coaching was probably what I wanted to do. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I don't have a whole lot of other skills. Like, I'm not great at a whole lot of other things and not great at coaching, but like, I know I can't weld or drive a pickup truck or like farm or it was probably going to be coaching. So just dove into it and lucky to do it.
The other side of it, now you're a dad. I mean, we were in our mid to late 20s in Stillwater, and it was a different time, but like, now you got crew and Veda, and you're at a place that is family, right? Coach Farley's been there a million years. It is what it is, and it's his place. And I see your kids running around the dome and out at practice. Like, how have you been able to balance that side now as a true grown-up, established in not only your life, but the profession? And now you got little ones where you were before.
One piece of advice that I did get a while ago was actually after I got let go one time, was don't mess with happiness. Like, it's hard to find happiness. Like, how do you grow within being happy? And still, as coaches, we're all chasing a golden ring. What's the pinnacle? Can you get to the pinnacle within what your mind frame of happiness is? My mind frame of happiness is, can I dictate my own personal time? And I've been at places where it's like, yeah, I'm off, but I ain't off. Like, I'm off, but you're going to get in trouble if you don't answer the phone call right the first time. And we're at a place here at UNI where Coach Farley values people's personal time, and it allows me to be a dad and allows me to help out around the house and things like that. And that is happiness to me. And then now how do I, chase professional success within happiness? Because I just don't see myself being the man that I want to be, knowing that I have to sleep on top of my phone because I got to hear that first ring, which I've been in that situation, and that's not great. Right. And I think that you earn happiness too, in regards to that respect to personal time. Like when I learned to early on look for work and be a problem solver on top of being a guy that looks for problems in whatever you're doing, instead of being a task oriented guy, like give me a task and I'll get it done. Well, just stop messing with me. I'm going to figure out a way to get it done. Right. And instead of like, hey, where are we at on this and this and this and this and this? Well, I got to eat this first bite before I, attack the second one. And I think that's important of earning your happiness too, is you got to show the people that you work for that you're going to go above and beyond the call of duty, but you don't want to be looking over your shoulder all the time either.
Bodie, I'll say this. One of the things I've always respected about your path on this is not only putting your own stamp on places, but being able to adapt, right? You hear these NFL coaching interviews, and what is Jonathan Gannon talking about is matching our personnel to our system. You went to Eastern right after they had Cooper Kupp and Coach Baldwin. That place was off and running before you got there, right? But you're coming in and you still got to be you. You go to North Texas with Coach Luttrell. They do what they do, but you still got to be you. And you've also gone into a place like Utah State and UNI where you really get to put your fingerprints on it with a defensive head coach. So tell me, as a young guy coming into the first Division I coordinator job to coming in a couple different versions of it, how have you been able to mold both situations?
One is, I think that the quarterback seat matters a lot. If you're taking over an offense that has an established quarterback, I think it's less about necessarily what they did, but what does he know and what's he comfortable doing? Because you don't want to change just for the sake of change. If this guy's already really good at something, there's tons of ways to skin a cat. So then how can you adapt your, verbiage, for lack of a better word? Because I think that's where we're going with it, like words and things like that. Like, if you have an established starter, how can I get done what I want to do on offense and make him feel like nothing's changing? That is the mind trick. And then if you have more of a blank slate, then, all right, you can use, the verbiage you want to do, but you better do what you know. And that's got me in trouble too. Like, you're trying to match the success of people that had the seat before you. And then it becomes like a competition, like an ego game. Like, this guy threw for 5,000 yards. How can I throw for 550? Well, it better be by doing the things that you know how to do. So you can't get too far away from that home base.
For what you're saying is, like, at the end of the day, you got to live with you. You get so many shots to actually get it done, and take the success and the metrics out of it, Bodie. Like the wins and losses, the yardage, whatever. Like, where did you feel like you grew the most? Whether it was as a coach, as a person, like where did you be like, man, I came in and came out of this situation so much better?
I would say, ironically, at Auburn. So we were at Utah State in 2020 during the COVID season, and Utah State made a change at the head coaching position. So my wife and I were looking like, all right, what do we do? And I had been lucky. I had 3 coordinator jobs in a row, Eastern Washington and North Texas, and then going to Utah State. It was like, all right, do you jump back in? Or is this a sign that, all right, I better adapt or die in what I think I know is offensive football, right? And not just offensive football, but like teaching progressions and personality traits and testing. And how do we, remold all this? So I had the opportunity to go to Auburn as an analyst, and Mike Bobo was phenomenal. I mean, I learned so much from him. And I kind of say 3 people as like my coaching, like, when I look, like, these guys changed my outlook on things. It was Mike Gundy, Mike Yurcich, and Mike Bobo. And I love those guys to death and look up to them. But I had like a 7-year run there of doing what I thought was great offensive football. And that was like the Oklahoma State stuff, right? And playing fast and wheeling and dealing, and whatever you close your eyes, you envision Oklahoma State football. Like, that's what we were going to do. And then I got a chance to step back and take a breath. And now I'm going to take this analyst job, and I'm going to go to the bottom of the food chain. I'm going to freaking make sure that there's coffee in the coffee pot and the trash is taken out and needs to be taken out. But I'm going to take every single note that I can, because if I can't steal anything from this experience, then I've failed. If I'm just using it as a year to get back in, then I'm going to be right back in the same situation I was if I didn't grow. Well, what it allowed me to do was like, all right, here's what I know as offensive football. And whether it's the spread, right? When you think of in the RPOs of Oklahoma State and the tempo of Mike Yurcich and those things, well, how do you apply it to new wave stuff, right? And like, how do you not look over the sideline? How can you teach the quarterback to check the runs? How can you give the quarterback the protection so that he has a little bit more control? And then now it became a little bit more of like NFL-ish, I would say. And I don't know much about that league, but what I would say now, our offense is like, all right, whatever you see on Sundays, we're going to do it with Saturday flair, and that's kind of, I guess, a small microcosm or a small example of what I did. But I would say I grew the most at Auburn because I was willing to let go of whatever I thought I knew. And all right, how do you apply it going forward? And let's throw away the stuff that has aged, I guess.
Well, and I think that's a great touch point on the scheme and learning. And because, again, if you don't figure it out, somebody else will, and you're going to get stuck in the old ways. How do you feel as being the guy in the chair that everyone's looking at in a meeting for 3 hours with the staff? You've come into multiple different staffs, learned multiple different people. How do you feel like you've delegated and grown as just someone who can make sure the ship's pointed in the right direction?
Well, I think it goes back to do what you know and what you're comfortable with, because I have been caught before, like trying to inherit schemes from a previous staff, or I like to say it's like YouTube installing, like, man, that was a cool play, let's put it in, right? Or that the previous staff ran this scheme, we got to keep it. Well, I don't really know that scheme. More importantly, I don't know what hurts it, right? So I don't know the issues that surround it. So I think that you're creating some confidence within your staff if you're doing things that you know, so that when they have questions, you're able to answer them in a timely and accurate fashion. And it's not like, you're all looking around each other. Then you lose confidence, right, in each other. The second thing is, and it's been really hard for me, unfortunately or fortunately, look at it, but I've been the coordinator at 3 different schools and been the youngest guy on staff. And that was hard because you want to make sure that you're being respectful of the guys that have done it a lot longer than you. But at the same time, you're the one that's having to live and die with these decisions and the production that's on the field. So I think it's that fine line of being able to stand up for what you believe in, but at the same time, giving those guys the leash that they deserve. I really believe that the best balance is to just do stuff that you know and don't try to step outside your box, because then you're creating gray.
We're taking a quick time out from Teachable Moments here, but don't hit that skip button, because these 15 to 20 seconds here will save you some time in the future. Steve, tell us what you got going out to these high school and college programs with Teach Tapes.
One sentence, Keith. It's pro football focus for drills, right? How do you do simpler, better, the things that you wish you had in those self-scouts from the winter, right? Footwork, aiming points, tackling, ball security. It's all trimmed up, cataloged. Anything you see on our Teach Tapes Twitter, it's the behind the scenes. It's the source of coming into your Exos or huddle and making sure that it's available to your players in your cutups, right? That's what we've taken a lot of pride in, is taking this open source information and making it digestible for the players, because that's what they want to see, is visuals of the guys they idolize and where they're trying to go. So happy to talk with anybody. It's on teachtapes.org/consulting. And we've been fortunate enough to work with Division I, 1AA, Division III, and some of the best high school programs in the country already. So let's get it going.
As coaches, we know that some of the biggest hurdles to our team's success can come from off the field. Your team needs support to tackle the endless list of expenses, uniforms, training equipment, travel, and more. But raising that money can feel like a full-time job. Thankfully, there's Vertical Raise. Vertical Raise is the premier online fundraising platform, using innovative technology to create the easiest and most efficient system available. Raise more money in less time with a local fundraising coach who works with your team every step of the way to customize the ideal fundraiser. With options for online donations, digital discount cards, premium product sales, and even spirit shops, Vertical Raise has top-of-the-line solutions for every fundraising style. To find out more, visit verticalraise.com and we'll get you connected with an exclusive offer on your first fundraiser.
Now, from a different side of it, I always joke with people, you can always tell who GA'd and who didn't just by how they operate within certain things. What is something that you just can't give up? Is it manipulating the call sheet? Is it the drawings? Is it the breakdowns, the drill library? Like, what is it that you still feel like, man, this is something that just keeps me sharp and I got to make sure this is dialed in for the right moments?
Yeah, 3 things that I do that I feel like once a GA, always a GA, and I will never let these things go. One is the install video. I think that people would agree with me that kind of paper playbooks are going the way of the dinosaur and players are watching more tape. So we do an install video and I create it. I know what looks I want to show and what order we want to show them. So that's what our players watch. And that's what I like to be in charge of. The second thing is the call sheet, because I have an order of an operation that I have to do it. So I can memorize it. I have to write it first, like physically handwrite it. And then I got to type it. And then I got to read it. And that's how I memorize the call sheet. So I create the install video. I create the call sheet. And then the third thing is kind of goofy, but I create all, I don't know if it's goofy or not, but I don't pass off any of my meetings to a GA or anything. Like I create all the meeting slides. I create all the meeting clips for that, because I think that time is of the essence when you come to a meeting. I don't believe in 2-hour-long meetings. You know, I know quarterbacks, we get extra time, but we'll even just have quarterback walkthroughs and things like that, because I think that you can't have them in a chair that long. So if I know I'm going to try to get 45 minutes worth of information across, I want to know exactly what's going into it and do it my way.
One step lower, right? Obviously, no one can do it alone. And you've been at all these different places. We've been there. You understand it. Once in the mud, you know what it's like. How do you see one of my biggest pet peeves, Bobby, is the convention GA clinic convention of just be a good boy and you'll all figure it out. Who is one of the best examples of that guy that you've seen at your different places? Like, this is someone who is about their business, knows who they are, and then just wants to help. And you think they got a bright future. Doesn't need to be someone in your building, but like, man, that's a guy that just carries himself the right way.
I'd say Hayden Mace was a really good guy that I've had. Hayden was my graduate assistant at Eastern Washington. And then I had a chance to hire him again at Utah State. He was most recently the offense coordinator at Sioux Falls. And then now he's back at Eastern Washington as the O-line coach. But what I would say, the thing that if I had to describe Hayden, was everything that he touched got better. And I would say that it either came back better than what I expected, or he found something within the organization that he could improve and made it better. And sometimes that comes with, like, you're not always coloring within the lines either. Like, he wasn't afraid to use imagination and step out on a limb saying, I know of a better way to do this. And I'm talking about like everything from like where to freaking like put the paper, like where we keep all these reams of paper, like that type of stuff, all the way down to like, hey, like a zone scheme, wherever it may be. Like, nothing was too big, nothing was too small, but everything that he touched got better, and it was above and beyond expectation. I would say that's a good thing. Is like, it's that old adage of, if you're gonna flip burgers, it better be the best burgers that you've ever had, right? That was Hayden. Everything that he touched, it was better than expected.
Here's my last question, Bodie, because I know you got other things and keeping, being respectful of your time, but not to like LeBron James write a letter to our younger self or anything, but like knowing what you know now, coming through all these different versions of Bodie Reeder, the young guy, the old guy, the dad, what would you appreciate or just wish somebody else knew of those moments when you don't think it's getting noticed? When me and you were looking bleary, I'd be like, this is seriously what we got to do right now? Or this is the thing that's stopping me from doing what I really need to do right now. Yeah. What would you say in just like that exhale moment of like, dude, you'll come out the other side and just keep figuring it out?
Man. All right. So are you saying like when I felt like there was no light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah. Just, man, at some points, like you just got to laugh at yourself and be like, man, it's going to be all right. Like, cause you're not the only one who thinks it, right? There's so many guys in there at late at night trying to, on a Wednesday, or like, God, how am I going to get through the other side of this?
All right. So one younger single life one, and then one married life one. So I took the job at Oklahoma State 3 days before fall camp. And you tried to get.
I'm guilty of that change in pace. Yeah. So background, Bodie took over the offensive QC job when I left for another position. He literally moved into my apartment and I had to move out so that he could move in. So keep rolling with the rest of the story.
So I did not, I couldn't spell Visio. I didn't know what it was. Background, in 2013, our last game of the year was against the University of Wisconsin River Falls. We won the game. It was Thanksgiving weekend. We were at River Falls, and there was probably 50 people there. Just some of the parents came, and maybe half the girlfriends were there to watch their guys play. My next game that I coached in was in August of 2014. We played the defending national champions, Florida State, in the Jerry Dome. So big flip of occurrence there. Well, anyway, I got hired 3 days before fall camp, and you're teaching me Visio, and I didn't know it existed. And then I'm going into fall camp, I'm doing these drawings. Well, one is I didn't know what the plays were. And then I'm drawing plays that I didn't know what they were. And I'm in there, I'm thinking, I have made a huge mistake. I have left a position where I get to call the plays and I get to, make some decisions I'm in a completely foreign, not only foreign, like I can deal with moving around like different, like foreign state, but I'm not a computer guy. So what have I done? Well, what it did was it forced me to learn the offense better than I think that anybody knew it, because I had to study it and I had to draw it and I had to make it so good that it was presentable to coaches and players. So I felt like I mastered that offense. Now, I thought I was never going to get out of that situation. I was going to get fired before the end of fall camp because I wasn't going to get it done. But if you look about how the dominoes work out, that ended up being the offense that I was going to run as a coordinator. That ended up being what I was going to call on Saturdays. And maybe that happened for a reason. I had to learn the ins and outs of it and everything about it so that I could call it, effectively one day. So looking back now, I do appreciate that time. And then the second one with my family is we moved to Texas after we went to the national championship game in 2018 at Eastern Washington. We moved to Texas and I got the OC job at North Texas. And we started off really good. And then everyone's excuse, he had some injuries and didn't have the year that we wanted to have, right? And the head coach let go of the defense coordinator and the offense coordinator after the year. We had just had a baby. We had just bought our first house. We lived 3.5 miles from my wife's parents in Flower Mound. I didn't think it'd get any worse than that point. But when you fast forward, it made us appreciate everything even more. It made us appreciate, one, happiness. And again, how do you strive for professional success within your own globe of what you deem happiness is? And two, what do we really need? As long as we have each other and we got our family, we got our kids now, 2 kids, we don't need a whole lot. And I think if you're into material possessions, you're probably in the wrong, profession. That shit's going to be on a moving truck a whole bunch. So I think that was an eye opener as well.
Bodie, let's wrap it up after that, man. It's putting a smile on my face because perspective's a hell of a thing, right? I mean, you look at those moments 10 years ago to now, the priorities are different, the goals are different, but just do it as well as you can is still the same, right?
Yeah, that's right, man.
Well, dude, I'll let you run. Thanks again, Bodie.
All right, talk to you soon.
Here are our winning edge takeaways and ideas for implementation. So, Steve, when you look at this episode, and man, a ton of stuff here, but what did you draw out of it? What are some takeaways that really any coach can use?
Bodie mentioned that sometimes you learn as much from those downward moments as you do from the rise. And he said, I had 3 straight coordinator jobs at different schools, and then I'm going back to being another guy on the support staff at Auburn. And he said, if I can't steal anything from this situation, then I've failed. Reevaluating, reassessing. I love what Bodie talked about, the 3 mics, Gundy, Yurcich, and Bobo, of my offense was what you close your eyes and think of Oklahoma State, and then you put your flair on it, but don't be YouTube installing, right? You got to know where the issues are, what's the gray, and it's really great to stay with that growth mindset. But at the same time, he said, there's things that I can't give up. Install presentations, meetings, the slides, being really particular for the players. I think we can all resonate with that of what do you still need your fingerprints on, like the nitty gritty, dirty work, and also his call sheet. Bodie wrote, he said, write it, type it, read it. It's really cool when you hear of what's important to get the process to the end game and how can you keep churning through that to not only refine it, but don't lose yourself in the process.
I agree. And I think the last and maybe the biggest takeaway, and you look at Bodie Reeder and what he shared here, and obviously, as I said, you've been a friend, you've stayed in touch, you know what's going on in life too. There's a lifestyle Bodie wants to live. There's a way he wants to do this, and so far it seemed that he's not compromised that.
I think the line was, don't mess with happiness. Don't try to out-happy happy. I've heard that from other people before. And what I really respect about Bodie's career is that he's not only adapted. You go into Eastern Washington, you go into North Texas, and you know what the deal is going to be, but be able to put your fingerprint on it and keep learning and try to make it the best version you can. So I'm not going to butter him up too much. He'll ride me for it later, but it's a good episode. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Be sure to go to coachingcoordinator.com for enhanced show notes with links to related episodes and resources. In addition, we have articles and our Winning Edge takeaways detailed in text. Also, sign up for our free weekly tip sheet, which highlights the best ideas from the previous week, trending episodes, and featured resources. Follow me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski.